Barrett. I am here with Barbara Brown. She's in Sacramento.
Yes.
Are you in Sacramento or a suburb of it?
Sacramento, yes.
And I'm in Los Angeles, and it is April 12th, 2022. So thank you. Glad we finally were able to get everything working. And I'd like to make sure we had your consent. You'll eventually get the paper consent that we want you to send back. But if you could give your verbal consent now, that would be helpful.
I give my verbal consent for you to record and to use or whatever else. Yeah.
Where are you from originally?
My parents were military, so therefore that's a complicated question. I was born back east and I lived on two coasts and I lived overseas. But I identify as Californian, and actually I don't move anymore because I hated it, and I've lived half my life in Sacramento. So, but prior to that, we bounced. I moved every 1 to 3 years, so I won't ever do that again.
That's a lot of moving. I don't like moving either. So do you have siblings?
I have 4 siblings, but one recently died, so now I only have 3.
I'm sorry. And where are you in the list of siblings? Oldest, middle? Youngest?
Well, I was middle, but I guess I still am. So my brother was the oldest, so I don't know. I'm kicked out of that middle place, but traditionally I've been the middle child.
Are there any people in your family, your siblings, or their children who are homosexual?
No.
Oh, just you.
Yes.
And how old were you when you decided that this was part of your life?
Not counting a couple of experiences prior, when I didn't identify, it was age 31 when I considered myself.
And did you then enter into a relationship?
Yes, yeah.
And you mentioned to me
that's what did it.
The relationship, right? That's usually what does it.
Yeah.
Now we have a lot of experimentation and exposure, but we don't necessarily jump into a relationship.
Right.
At first.
Right. That's true.
You mentioned that you were in a long-term relationship with a partner who suffered a terrible accident.
Yeah, I was about 22 years with my partner, and we were in a car accident, and she died 9 years after the accident, and this was about 4 or 5 years ago.
I'm terrible.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
And did you take full care of her at home?
I took 24/7, but I did have some help through the county through in-home support services and, any help I could get. But basically, I was on call or directly taken care of.
What was her name?
Her name was Peggy.
And how did you meet her? Was she your first relationship that you mentioned? No.
No, she was not. There were some groups, not many here in Sacramento in the 90s, and she came to a meeting for, I think it was called Dykes Out Together, DOT, which doesn't exist anymore. And she came to the meeting, and I was organizing a walk with UC Davis vet school. And so she showed up, and that's how I came to meet her.
Very difficult relationship, but important to you.
Oh, yeah, very well, yeah.
And what's your occupation?
Well, I'm retired now, but other than a few, short jobs, I worked for the state for about 30 some odd years.
And what kind of work did you do there?
I was mostly an analyst. One time I was a social work consultant, but mostly an analyst with various social, and health programs, and, like WIC and breast cancer and adoptions and disability, things like that.
So if someone
consumer affairs,
was interested in following your direction for a career, what would their background have to be?
Oh, for somebody to become a state employee analyst, basically a college degree. But I was going to go into rehabilitation counseling and or social work, but I ended up with the state most of the time.
Mm-hmm. One of the reasons I asked this is record the past to inspire the future. We're sort of laying the groundwork for people to do research, like young women and even older women, to say, well, maybe I could do this, maybe. And finding the right direction to get help when you're looking for a career, if you're not focused yourself, isn't easy. So
yes, yeah, definitely.
So that's why I say, well, how do you get to do that?
Well, I didn't intend to, but you with the state, like most government agencies, you take a test, take an exam, get a score. And, when you're looking for particular jobs, they tell you all the requirements. So entry level work, and you don't have to have a college degree, but, if you depends on what level you want to be in or what you want to do. And having specialized experience or degrees sends you one way, but this was sort of more a generalist sort of thing. I started work for the state in 1974, and this was after I dropped out of grad school. And so basically you have to get a job when you're not going to school, at least back in the 70s. And I had not planned to stay with the state. I planned to finish the degree and go into rehab counseling. And then later I got another degree. Well, no, I didn't get the first one. I got a degree in social work, and I was going to do social work, but I had been with the state at that point for 15 years, and any entry level social work would not pay as much, or and also I would go from an office to working in the field, and at that point, I didn't have the idealism and energy to work in direct practices. So turns out I was actually very good in programming, and not programming, but servicing programs and contracts and education and administrative, that's what I should say. So I just stayed with it. And any social work I ever did was unpaid, or volunteer or something like that.
So who took care of your partner while you were working?
Well, she had just retired the year before. And when she retired, when the accident happened, I was 58, but I was working as a retired annuitant. And so when the accident happened and she was hospitalized for, 6 months in nursing home for 3, I continued to work and kind of commute to the hospitals and everything. But once she came home, I quit my job. So after she came home, 9 months after the accident, I did not work anymore, except you could say I worked, whether it was paid or through in-home support services, which doesn't pay very much, but it all helps. So, and since she died 5 years ago, I have not worked. I even tried to get work, but I think I'm too old, and you can't prove age discrimination, and I don't know all the programs now anyway. So, that's pretty much my work history. Pardon me?
That was so all-consuming. It's hard to change directions, I bet.
Oh, you mean caregiving is all consuming?
Yeah, right.
You have no idea, and that's, I say that because that was another part of the experience of caregiving. People who've not done it, we used to say they don't have a clue, and you don't. And how can you know unless you do it? I never thought I would be doing any such thing, and I never thought I would be doing the skills that I had, or the paramedical skills I had to learn. And so, I would say caregiving is a job. And actually, we had, if you want to connect it to being, lesbian, we were registered domestic partners, and I had to even, prove myself or something to get in to see her in hospitals and stuff. And then basically, I was her power of attorney, and I was everything. And I dealt with all the doctors and all the county and legal and everything sort of thing. So I wasn't, and the lawsuit that she had, because it wasn't our fault, I was nobody. And I was injured too, and we had to fight that. So, it's just a little extra added. Luckily, this did not, if this had happened, 30, 40 years ago, they would have taken her away from me, I'm sure, because unless nobody else wanted to do the caring,
Right.
So, but I would have had no input. And as a matter of fact, when she died, Go ahead.
But did the domestic partnership help you have access to caring for her?
It didn't help, but I was able, if you're an analyst and bureaucrat for 30 years, you know how to work the system. You just basically outlast them. So it didn't help, but I didn't have a problem with it, really. Basically, I was going to say when she died, I was able, and I could not have done that in years past, I was able to say no, take her off, do not resuscitate. And there was no way I could have done that a few years ago.
Did she die at home?
So it's better now than it was. It's not perfect, but it's better now. And the other thing is it was a strange time financially as a registered domestic partner because I don't think at the accident you had legalized marriage yet. So their tax differences and eligibility differences, the state recognized the registered domestic partnership. And so my assets were counted when she applied for Medi-Cal. But the feds were totally against it all.
This is informative because as we're still struggling to say this is who I am in relationship to this other person, whether it's domestic partnerships, marriage, or friendship. It's just.
Well, I was tested when she was first in the hospital, and I had to prove that I had a relationship with her. And the first thing they said is, how long have you been together? And so they checked her answer with my answer, and they wanted to see, if we agreed on our answers and a few things like that. And and I think after a while, it's not so much they accepted it, is, if nobody else is stepping up to help care, they'll take you. I think. She had a daughter who wasn't anywhere around and she didn't have parents. And even her friends said, people, you don't want to do caregiving if you can help it. And, or you think you do, but as soon as somebody says in answer to you, can I help you? Let me help you. And then you give them a task to do. And they didn't mean that. So I think all the medical profession kind of was glad I was there, except they ignored me a lot. They would go ahead and do the testing, the treatment, everything, when I had said many times, no, don't do this, yes, do that. And by the way, I've been caring for her for a few years now, and I know better than you do what some of the medical things can be done because we found out the hard way. And when you send her home, I'm the one that's doing the skincare and the machines and the this and that and everything. But yeah, I was dismissed, but I called myself the bitch advocate, and you kind of didn't mess with me if you got me upset. Like, and I will go over your head, and, things like that. And I will call the ombudsman, but I would say that's the exception because people, the biggest problem is nobody knows what you should do when somebody's in an accident or a severe injury, disability. They do not coordinate services. They talk about case management. It does not exist. She was in San Jose or Santa Clara County, so they give me, oh, well, you can apply for Medi-Cal. And they give me all the county papers for San Jose. And, well, wait a minute, we're taking her back to Sacramento. But then I did not find out that there is a state program that will give you hours for home care, only because I had a friend who I worked with who was a state employee who sat next to somebody in a different department. And she said, have you tried this? I've never heard about it. Mm-hmm. So you have to do all of those things, and they don't volunteer it. And because everybody's just doing their specific job, and they don't work with they talk about teams. They don't do it. I don't know why. Maybe they can't. Maybe they've got too much to do. But, caregiving is hard enough without the extra stuff of, well, who the heck are you? And by the way, you don't know anything. We do. You're not a doctor. Well, no, but you don't stay home and put catheters in either, do you? That kind of thing. But you get used to it. You don't like it, but you get used to it.
Did she have any, so she was totally paralyzed?
From the waist, from the neck down. She was a quadriplegic, yes.
Right. So she could talk and.
Her brain, she's smart. She was smarter than I was all the time. She was sharp as a tech. Thank God. Because I would have had a hard time with a cognitive issue, or she didn't recognize me, something like that.
Well, you get many gold stars in my page of heroines, right?
Yeah, well, you know, I hate to say that, but that and $5 will get me a cup of Starbucks. I mean, and the reason I'm saying that is this is another thing. This is way off the subject. It's all on caregiving, but people will say, "Oh, Barbara, you're a saint. Oh, you're such an inspiration." And you know, I can't explain exactly why, and I'm not the only one, but that kind of doesn't go over well with caregivers.
So, have you, if somebody came to you and asked for help with a similar situation that you experienced with your partner, would you
I
try?
would, because well, it depends on what they ask for, because yeah, I've been through it, and I have been in support groups where you know I could tell them how to file for a
Right.
disability claim. I could do a disability claim for them. I could tell them, "Have you heard about this program? Oh, you don't have any money, huh? We'll take all of their assets and put it in a special needs trust." But I learned all on my own by myself. Well, actually, I paid a lot of money for a lawyer, and in fact, I would tell people, get an estate lawyer,
Mhm.
you know, and would you pay $5,000 to get $40,000 a year in caregiving and things like? Yeah, sure you would. So, um,
So,
yes, I would help. Sure,
so maybe this is what your next step is.
probably.
But just the fact that you have this big bolus of information, the nurses don't have it. I can tell you that. I worked in the operating room, so
Well,
I did bedside care.
the
But
that's what a discharge nurse should do. But you know, you're
those
in
are limited.
pediatrics. I don't expect that. Well, I did work with a discharge nurse, and I worked with a social worker and a psychologist all at the hospital. And they were basically saying, "Oh, well, you won't have any problem doing this." And I'm kind of wanting to leap over the bed and said, "Have you been doing this lately? You know, do you take care of somebody at home?" Um, I just think that everybody is specialized, whereas a caregiver, especially for a loved one at a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week thing, you're not specialized. You have paralegal, paramedical, para
Mhm.
everything knowledge that you have to learn and find out, you know. So I don't blame people in the professions. I just
No,
had
I
to
know that.
work with them,
But I think
you
that
know.
you're carrying a gift that people could use. If people saw this video and wanted to call you to ask you to help them or tell you your experience, would you
Sure,
do that?
sure.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
you
I
might,
would. Did you,
the
would
hospital
you like me
people,
to do?
including the physicians, do not
Would,
know what happens when the patient
mhm.
goes home. We don't.
Well, I have done it. I will do it. I'll do it for anybody you refer me to. But let me do a quick ad here, and that is I found a terrible amount of lots of good support through the Well Spouse Association. They are nationwide. They're actually you know, a couple people throughout the world. And I had been caregiving for 6 years, and locally, if you found a support group for caregivers, it would be specialized through the Alzheimer Association or the MS Association.
Uh,
This is well spouse means a partner or a spouse, and it's easy to find.
I can't think of going through anything more painful than what you went through, frankly.
Well,
But
I
your
was on the board of
information,
the directors. I was in a caregiving group. No, it was actually a group for the patients. And I kept handing the social workers, the psychologists, the doctors, my own people, cards saying, hey, when your person comes in, give them this little card, business card I have about Well Spouse. And I would put up flyers and I would do all, you can do this. And I met people at movie theaters and gave them information. You can get the information out there. You're kind of one person, one organization. I would, but I did try to get more of the people in the professions to have these resources, which they should have, which a social worker at any hospital should have. Um, Tell them to call me, you know. But that's not the only organization. You just need connections,
right?
you know,
You need
a
help.
network. But they've got articles, they get a newsletter. I mean, you know, there's a lot of support. And if they don't, or if somebody doesn't know something, they will find out for you, or they will um, put it to the group. Hey, what do you know about this? You know, if you find out about it, you can join. So anyway, so you have a patient, and they're you know having a problem. But what happens is the caregiver comes in and they look like hell because they're tired, you say, hey, well, you could do something locally, but also there's this group, and sometimes they do meet where you can get to them, but also it's 2 o'clock in the morning. You want somebody to, hear what you're saying, and you'll get maybe not 2 in the morning, but that's when I took care of my spouse partner all day long into the night. She went to bed around 10 or 11. That's when my day started. That was just for me. I ate, I drank, and I binged on TV and felt sorry for myself and got on well spells. But that's just me. The 9 years that she had extra, she might have anyway. I think if she'd stayed in a nursing home, she wouldn't have made it over 1 year, maybe a little bit more than that. The last thing about being a lesbian and a well spouse, and the last thing is I'm trying not to spend all the time on it, is when I joined in 2013, one guy was so happy to find out there was another, gay person in there, but it's grown. There are a lot more gay partners, caregivers in the group. It took us a while, and there's no problem at being accepted. Caregiving is caregiving, so it's grown a lot. And, that's why I have a very good male friend, gay guy, in Virginia, and he had a partner for 40 years, and the partner died 3 years ago, and we support each other quite a lot. So, and they're younger. There's even a group for the younger caregivers, under 40 and under, or something like that. So it tries to do as best it can, and then it's like I keep saying, it's not the only group, but the problem is you've got to find these resources.
Did your partner die at home? Did she die at home?
I raced her to the hospital, and she was conscious when I got her in the van and unconscious when I got her at the hospital. While I was parking my car, they were getting ready to put the paddles on her, and I go in there and I go, no. Now she had pneumonia, and it was about the 3rd or 4th time, and I just thought that they could give her, oxygen. Sometimes I think I should have let them do it because she might have come back, but I'm not sure, because a couple of days before we were in the ER and they were going to aspirate her or stick a needle in or whatever it was, and then they didn't do it. And I think, well, I should have let them. I should have said, why aren't you going to do it? And then one nurse said later, or doctor said, you should hospitalize her. And I said, well, what can you do here that you can't do at home? And I did that because Peggy hated being in the hospital. And now, what if I insisted on the aspiration and I had hospitalized her? But every year she was getting weaker and weaker and weaker, and her lung capacity, which was cut in half by the accident, got less and less and less. And she was starting to not eat, and I might have only been delaying the inevitable, but again, I have no idea. You never know if you did all the right things, but you did the best you could. So.
That's normal. You don't know.
Well, actually, when she died, when she was first hospitalized, and I came to visit her, and she had a trach, but she had it taken off once in a while so she could talk to me. She said, "Let me die, let me die, let me die." And you have to kind of think, well, what did she want? Well, no, I'm not going to let you die. You got a kid. Think about the kid. And so 9 years passed. But we would go, believe it or not, we would go just all, if we didn't go far, we went around in town just to take rides. Believe it or not, we like to stop at the old town, or not old town, the old cemetery, where John Sutter is and all that sort of stuff. And we'd sit there because it's beautiful and it's peaceful. And we would talk about, what do you want? And she did have a DNR, and she did have whatever that POTUS or postal or whatever thing that is. And, that's what she wanted. And so that's why when I came in, I said no, because I knew what they were trying to do. And I think it would have been too late anyway. And that's not what she wanted. So I hope that's not what I wanted either. I wanted her to keep going. And I tried to keep telling her, your mind is sharp. We can do anything that we are able to do. I'm sorry you can't hike and bike and travel. She traveled all around the world. But I'll put you in the van and we'll go to the ocean. That's about as far as I can drive without, wanting to do anymore. And I had a therapist. I had to be a therapist, all the things that, I wasn't prepared to do. And if I had gotten paid for every service that I gave, but you don't do that for a partner, So, as far as letting her die, I could say, well, what if? But also, I could have a huge what if. What if I had not been driving 101 and I'd waited, 15 minutes later, the guy who hit us would not have been where we were, You could do that till you go crazy. So, it's a done deal. Yeah, so.
Wow. But you listened to her. You didn't want to live like that.
Wait. No. From the very beginning, she didn't. But she got to be.
We hear that and we try to make that happen for the person.
Yeah, but I wasn't going to make it happen the first month. Yeah.
But your love of her, you wanted to go on in terms of seeing her every day.
Yeah.
But that isn't where she wanted to go.
One of the last times she was taken to ER or something like that, I said, I'm not ready for this, I mean, basically what I was telling her, not so much that don't leave me is what I was saying, There's, and what I tried to say many, many times is you may not have what you had, but you still have something, and let's maximize it. I mean, we would just get out of the house so that you're not sitting in a hospital bed thinking about, all my friends are doing this and my life is over. No, I would distract her. It's basically it didn't, I mean, she still was depressed sometimes, but I'd make her laugh. I'd depress her. I would do, just about anything. And, actually, I think as hard as it was, stressful as it was, sometimes I got angry. I think that caregiving job was the best job I ever had. And you wouldn't have got me to say that a few years ago, but I actually was the most competent person I ever was able to be when I was doing that. But I didn't feel that way at the time. And we had a lot of fun. We had some fun too, You
really loved her. You loved each other.
Yes, exactly.
So that's a gift.
That helps. That if you hate somebody, you're not going to want to care for them at all. So
you won't be able to.
Yes, that helps. That's true.
So when's your anniversary?
Is the anniversary when you actually first met or saw somebody, or is the anniversary when you first went over to their house, or is the anniversary what? But anyway, it's May, and we considered May 21st our anniversary, so I guess it's coming up. And I met her in 1994. So I don't know, that would make it 28 years, something like that.
28 years, right? Huh. You see yourself as ever having another relationship with someone?
But I think I would like some really good friends that you do something with. But living together, sometimes, because half the time I don't want to be alone. And then the other half of the time is, God, leave me alone,
Right.
I can't, yes. I'm not sure I can answer that. But I think I'll know the answer if somebody comes along, and then, oh, you're worth it. You're worth what I'd have to, do to, make a relationship work.
You'll get there.
But I haven't had really any opportunity. First off, the first year or two, I was so deep in grief. Yeah. People avoided me. And then just when I was coming out of it, then the pandemic happened, and, that kind of a thing.
So it's sort of changing now. Lightening up the pandemic, which is good, I hope. So if you knew that you were going to die in a short time, how would you like to be remembered?
Well, I actually have a will, and there's part of a will or part of a trust thing that says where you want to be. Peggy wanted her ashes strewn around Tahoe or something like that, and I was going to have her out to sea because I didn't want to hike up Tahoe. And after about 3 or 4 days, I asked for the ashes back, and there's a church that I belong to but don't go to, and there's a niche, and that's where she is, and I got myself one. So if I'm going to die, a church service with some people there, some music. I picked out the music, and I will be with Peggy. But and my will and everything is so in order, and I have a fiduciary, and I have a couple of friends. I said, if you find out I die, come on down and take all the furniture you want, or whatever's there. So how would I be remembered? And I was about to tell you, and it's partly true. It doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't matter how you're remembered. You're gone. And I would rather be remembered now,
That's
sort
like
of thing.
You're not remembered.
Yeah.
Right?
I guess so. I don't know. I mean,
Well, if you're going to be a philanthropist, wait a minute. If you're going to be a philanthropist, obviously you want a little.
Well, the thing is, I'm almost ready to do everything anonymously because I get a lot of satisfaction out of it. And I say, oh, what a good person I am. But actually, I want to go past that, where you do it because you do it because it needs it and it's the right thing to do. And it's not to self-glorify yourself. And I don't think I'll have a problem being remembered by, people I've been in their lives. And Peggy, God, you should have seen how many people came to. We didn't have a funeral; we had a celebration, and everybody came, and it was really kind of nice. I don't know, I be remembered as a good friend.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I knew you'd come up with something.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you too. Okay.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.